Hello, good evening to all the participants of this course. Today, my lecture is on application of geospatial technology in the field of forestry and ecology. So, I will be giving you an overview of the different applications which are being done in this field. So, before going to the application areas, let me just give you a brief background of the area of forestry and ecology. So as you know that the globally forest is a major land cover type and constitutes about 31% of the total global land area. And within the land area covered by the forest, about 47% is covered by the tropical rainforest, 27% by boreal forest, 16% by temperate forest, and 11% by subtropical forest. So with this, you can get an idea that the tropical rainforests are most biodiversity rich, and they also constitute a very large area, whereas the boreal forest, they are also having a very large area under it, but they are a species relatively species poor ecosystem. Now, forest, as I told that they are at 31% of the land area is covered by forest, but forests are being lost at a very high rate. To give you an example that every year an area about the state of the Bihar states in India, we are losing the forest. So it will come around say 5 to 10 million hectare of forest every year is being lost globally. And despite having very high level of awareness about the forest conservation and management, still this kind of loss of forest is taking place, and mostly it is taking place in the tropical part of the world. And some of the very important commerce commodities are there for which actually forests are being declined or being cut. For example, beef production, vegetable oils, for example, palm oil productions, coffee, and paper productions. So these are the some of the industries for which actually forests are being cut. And if you look at the major driver of forest loss, then of course first is the deforestation, complete clearing of the forest. Urbanization is happening at a very rapid rate, and shifting cultivation in because it is practiced in tropical part of the world, so there it causes a lot of forest loss. And there, apart from that, wildfire, which is now increasing its in intensity and spread, it is also causing loss of forest. India, as far as India's forest cover is concerned, we have about 1/5 of our country is covered by forest, and we are actually gaining in forest cover, but actually we are losing a lot of forest, which is biodiversity rich forest in the places like northeast region. We are losing a lot of forest every year. Now, having given this kind of background, that what is the status of forest globally and India, and what are the major driver of forest loss, because if forests get lost, you actually also has the loss of the habitat, and accordingly you have the loss of the biodiversity and ecosystem services. Now, for what purpose we need actually geospatial technology inputs is because we have at country level, we have to manage the forest properly. We have to keep the environmental stability of our country. So there are different programs. So one of the things is, you may be knowing that the forest department prepares forest working plan, which is a very important inputs for forest management in the country. And for this actually we need geospatial technology to prepare the forest working plan. Green India mission is a government of India has actually embarked upon of a major mission that with that we will increase the forest cover, or we will do a lot of plantation activity. Again, there we need geospatial technology to plan such activity, to implement such activities. Green credit program is initiated by Government of India, and this program also envisages that to help those communities and people, those who are actually engaged in protection and better management of forest, watershed, and ecosystem services. So to give them financial rewards. So now green credit program have also been started. Compensatory afforestation under CAMPA, and you know that in our country, for example, there are many areas where mining is being done, and the mining companies give funds to the government for actually if they actually cause loss of the forest cover in the mining area. So they give the funds to the government to in order to take up the plantation activities in other areas. So for that, these kind of activity also we need a lot of geospatial input to plan such new areas for plantation, for example, wasteland areas. And National Forest Monitoring System (FSI), you may be aware, Forest Survey of India is based at Dehradun, and our entire national forest cover monitoring system is actually forest type and mapping, density mapping, all is based on geospatial input. So remote sensing and geospatial data is very critical for national forest cover assessment done by FSI. And at the same time, you know, because there are international mechanisms have been evolved, for example, RED Plus, reducing emission from degradation and deforestation. Such a mechanism actually involve transparency, and they involve accountability and appraisal of the carbon sequestration projects. So for that also, remote sensing geospatial inputs are very, very important, and it is a part of the every R&D project. You will find that remote sensing GIS inputs are they ask for such kind of reporting using remote sensing in GIS. Then national communication is there. India is signatory to many international treaties, including treaty to climate change, and there also when we report our greenhouse gas inventory, and so there we generate the forest contribution in the carbon sequestration through the geospatial inputs. In Paris Agreement in 2015, India has committed that India will actually increase our forest cover, and so for that also nationally determined contribution. We need to identify the areas where actually land is vacant and where plantation can be done, and within the forest also where are the gaps where new plantation can be taken up. So such things also are only possible when you have the geospatial data support. Sustainable Development Goal and 2020 Biodiversity Framework of Convention on Biological Diversity, or even the recent Global Biodiversity Frameworks from they also emphasize on reporting based on remote sensing GIS inputs. So yeah, every country reports its progress against the different targets, and so as India also does, and India because having good forest cover monitoring systems, so we in some of the parameter we report these things very nicely with the help of geospatial data inputs. So this is just I have given you the major programs and activities for which we actually need the inputs, geospatial technology input. Now, to proceed further, you know, at present time, what we are saying that everything is biodiversity, okay? Forest, ecology, everything people are talking in terms of biodiversity now. Biodiversity, some of you may be understanding that this is a variety of variability of life, but it has gone beyond that. Now the biodiversity is the variability within the species, within the populations, within the ecosystem. So it has become a very multifaceted subject. And biodiversity not only includes genetic biodiversity, the species population, communities, the species functional traits, ecosystem function and structure. So everything is encompassed within the biodiversity. So now globally efforts are being done that how to quantify these different aspects of biodiversity using geospatial data. And of course, all aspects cannot be addressed with remote sensing geospatial technology. For example, genetic level studies, there we have a limitation in applying the remote sensing technology directly. But the higher order of biodiversity, for example, understanding community composition, ecosystem structure, ecosystem function, all these aspects can be very well addressed with the remote sensing data, and there is no other way of doing such things. Now, for this, what we require, actually, we require data sets, and data is very critical for any sort of assessment and monitoring. And it is now we are at the stage that where we are using multiple data sources from satellites, from drones, from UAV, from citizen science, from camera traps, from acoustic techniques, which actually monitor the sounds within the forest or within the marine systems, satellite telemetry, or in environmental DNA. So many such techniques have come now, and which are actually being analyzed in an integrated manner in order to address the issues related to biodiversity. So it is not that in isolation all techniques and tools are working in isolation. Now a lot of integration has happened, and there are very good examples have been demonstrated. Integrated, where integrated use of all these technologies is being done. Now, because Earth observation at the same time, geospatial technologies, what used to be 10 years earlier, now at the last 10 year, 15-year time period, now it has a lot of advancement has taken place in this area, and in fact the sensor has become very diversified. Satellites and sensors are there in the space right now, from the different global space agencies and India. And now we are in a very good situation to actually to assess the forest characteristics, not only just reporting the forest cover area and changes in the forest cover which takes place, but beyond that also we are able to give much more information about the forest. So these are the some of the aspect for which we require specific types of sensors. For example, composition. Forest composition means how many type of species are there, how many types of where are the trees, where are the shrubs, where are the herbs communities. This is compositional information. So here sentinel data, prisma, hyperspectral data, resource set data, CubeSat and planet data, all sorts of multispectral, hyperspectral data sets are helping in actually uh, quantifying the compositional diversity of the forest. Similarly, physiological diversity, the plant physiological information, which is very critical. If you don't have plant physiological information, you cannot understand how ecosystems are functioning, how they are responding to, for example, climate change. So there also we have many important missions. For example, hyperspectral InMap mission. Trishna is a mission planned by ISRO for specifically for providing very high resolution thermal data. And then accordingly, we have another kind of measurement, flux mission, fluorescence explorer mission from ESA for monitoring the photosynthetic rate of the vegetation. So these kind of new things are happening. Structural diversity is another aspect of forest. Forest is a 3D volume, a very complex geometry, and you need to measure the height of the forest and structure of the forest. For that also, NISAR program of India, L-band and S-band SAR system, it will give you very good information on biomass, for example. This is a structural parameter. JEDI is another laser sensor, which is provides the canopy height information. And today we are in a very good situation that today we have global canopy height map at 30-meter resolution and 1-meter resolution. So you are in a situation that to understand how tall your forests are, where are the tallest trees in your area. Similarly, in coming time, we will have P-bands, our biomass missions are from ESA, which will give us very good information about the very dense forest areas where very large volume and biomass is there, particularly in the very dense tropical rainforest areas. So if you just look at my slide here, I am showing you some of the very nice pictures which have been taken from satellites. And satellites had been monitoring the Earth system, Earth forests since last 3-4 decades. And this is the picture of the Brazilian Amazon. You can see that within the very dark green background, you have the yellowish patchwork, which is created by the human activity, particularly cutting of the forest for cattle ranching, meat production. And then you see a close-up view of this, that they call it fishbone clearing of the forest in Brazil. And so this type of destruction of the very pristine tropical rainforest can be very nicely picked up by the satellite, and satellites can track changes at every parcel level which is happening in this landscape, and can give us very accurate information to the policymaker, to the government, about such activities. Similarly, this is the case of sitting cultivation in Northeast India. And here also you see the condition of the landscape. This is one of the very highest rainfall region in the country, and very high fertile land. But due to the very old age shifting cultivation practices, now this landscape has severely deteriorated. And satellite data gives you very good information that where forests are now existing, and where humans have modified the landscape in a very drastic manner. Then similarly, this is a picture of a burnt area of a forest which is in Australia. And this picture you will see that the only is bearing few patches of the forest in the middle part. Other part of the entire landscape is being burnt by the fire. So these forest fire also, they are at some places in India, for example, they don't cover large area, but there are countries where forests are having only few species and mostly monoculture like eucalyptus trees in this case. And their forest fire when happens, they cover very large area. And satellite data gives you very good information on burnt area in such ecosystem. And then you see that tsunami you might have heard in 2004, it struck the Andaman and particularly the Nicobar Islands, and we lost a lot of lowland tropical rainforest. Still, if you just visit this area in the Google Earth, you will see that the trees are lying on the say sea floor, and a lot of forest was lost. But at the time, we were not having very high resolution satellite images. And luckily now we have in last 10-year time period, and now we could see that how much damage has actually happened that time due to tsunami. But at time of tsunami, we were not able to get such pictures. So satellite data resolution has dramatically improved, and which has now helped us in knowing the condition of our ecosystem. Particularly, this is a natural disaster, tsunami. And so this type of information is very crucial. And then we have now remote sensing. In terms of its capability, it has very high capability, and now it is being revealed by the use of the drone, for example, or aircraft. And this is a picture, one picture. You can see that 5 centimeter spatial resolution, and this has been captured of the Brazilian Amazon. And you see that a variety of trees are growing there in a very congested manner, and you can really identify each of them from the 5 centimeter spatial resolution image. And you can perform a very good biodiversity inventory of the area in terms of different type of trees, even without going to the field also. And similarly, the other image you see that 30 centimeter multispectral data, and a typical when there was a senescence period was going on at the time, leaf file period was going on at the time this image was taken, and you see that how much color variations are present in this area, and that is helpful in identification of different species. Now coming to the different new trends which are going on right now in this area. One is that now we are not limited to use of one satellite data, multiple satellite data are being used. Now data are being processed in a cloud-based environment using machine learning, deep learning, and in future we are also talking of edge computing. Large area applications now, researchers are doing study over very large areas, actually over the continent, over national level, over global level. So these are the new trends. Theme specific geoportals have come up. For example, geoportal on water, geoportal for global forest watch. Most for many application now we have near real time application, for example forest fire detection, and like in other field, for example in disaster. Similarly in forest also, for near real time forest fire information is very crucial. Citizen science and crowd sourcing data has become part of the ecological planning, and now these kind of things are being also explored. And then we have national level also, we have different type of products available. Not only now forest cover map is available from the FSI, forest cover map is also available from the Global Forest Watch. So such new trends are happening, and where now researchers have flexibility to look at different products and then compare them and then evaluate them. FSI, in India, they started forest cover mapping after it was demonstrated by the ISRO that the forest cover mapping is possible using satellite remote sensing data. And since then, FSI is doing this forest cover change information they are bringing in terms of loss and gain of forest cover, and also they are statistically they are also determining how much tree cover is there in the outside forest areas, how much dynamic changes are in tree cover is there. And then, there is another thing is recently many space agencies have, since 2009 when Landsat started, they have opened their data archive. And now satellite data are not only available recent satellite data, but very old satellite data of last 40 years, 30 years, 20 years from different satellites. These archives have been opened. Now the archive is opened, the data has been reprocessed also, and they have been quality improved also. And now you can generate the time lapse also using such satellite time series satellite images, and you can always look in the areas and what has happened in the past in those areas, how forest cover has been lost in that area, what has been the pattern in this area. So this kind of very good interesting insight into the deforestation processes and forest change processes can be gained by analyzing the archive data. And in recent times now, because you have archive data is available, and you are not only just visually analyzing the images, but you are using deep learning approaches to automatically classify the forest and non-forest areas and generating estimate that in last 30 years, for example, how much forest cover loss has taken place, which otherwise, there will be 40 years of data. It is very difficult to analyze the data, and for every year it is very difficult. But when you use deep learning kind of algorithms, they help you in actually. So this is a study of the Sonitpur in Assam, where the deforestation monitoring has been done using deep learning algorithm. Similarly, forest type mapping or going mapping up to community and species level, it's also a new thing which now we researchers are attempting. So it is not that only it is up to limited to forest type and density mapping. The next level of mapping up to community level, species level, is being targeted, and mainly because now satellite data are available seamlessly, and for a monthly basis you can generate composite for very large area. And so this helps in actually reducing the radiometric differences, scenes to scene radiometric differences. And also you can apply the algorithm at one go over a large area, so you need not to apply algorithm scene by scene. So this kind of new development has facilitated that now we are able to generate very high the level of details in terms of different vegetation type species. So this is an example that the mapping which has been done using machine learning algorithm in the greater Himalaya, in the alpine and subalpine region of western Himalaya. And these are the some of the products of these machine learning exercise. So you can see that there is a broad level of map generated, and then there's a fine level of information, and there's a value of flower. You can see a very close view of the value of flower where different type of species has been mapped: needle leaf, Abies spectabilis, Betula utilis, Bhuspatra, Pinus voluciana, Quercus semicarpifolia, Danthonia grassland, Citrus deodara, Juniperus indica, Cobreacia, Rhododendron campanulatum, Mixed herbaceous, Alpine moist scrubs. So this type of details actually now ecologists are finding it very interesting, because these technologies, because they are now able to classify these species they have seen in the field. Earlier it was very difficult. They were not able to appreciate because forest types maps were very coarse. And whereas when they go to the field, they see something different there. So now there is a match between two scale, at the scale at which the ecologists work or taxonomists work on the ground, and the scale at which remote sensing is able to provide the data. And the other aspect of monitoring the vegetation is that to monitoring the seasonal changes in the vegetation. Vegetation is a dynamic thing. So as per the environmental changes, seasonal changes, vegetation also changes, and this is called phenology. And because now satellite data, every daily basis satellite data are being captured, so you actually generating 365 image of the year, and based on 365 image of a year, you can determine by certain statistical metrics, you can determine that at what time there is a leaf emergence has taken place, or at what time the leaf fall has taken place, or what has been the period of growth of a particular forest type. For example, what we call as growing season length. So all such metrics, which is called phenological metrics, we are able to generate, and we are able to understand that how forests actually adjust themselves or cope up with the existing climatic condition. For example, the climatic condition of South India are different, whereas the climatic condition of North India is very different. So therefore, the forest in the North India, they adopt is different actually strategy to cope up with the environmental stress. And whereas southern India, we have less environmental fluctuation, so they are actually evergreen forest, and they have a different phenological strategy. So this all we has been facilitated with the help of the this remote sensing data. Other aspect is that we need to know that the biomass which is there stored in the forest, because India, we a large population is at the forest fringes and dependent on forest for fuel wood, firewood, etc. And also because now globally we want that we want to know that where is the how much biomass is stored, carbon is stored. So now using geospatial data and this type of map has been produced by ISRO, and here the basic thing is that this required field inventory, very comprehensive field inventory it requires. So about 6,000 hectare plots across the country were laid out, and then of course the geospatial analysis where the in terms of data, optical data, radar data, all those were used, and then in terms of techniques, the machine learning techniques were used, and then you can see that the map has come which actually shows the spatial distribution of the carbon or biomass in India. Where are the low areas, where are the high areas? This is very important for planning purposes. And because carbon is a commodity which is being sold in the market now, okay, in terms of carbon credit. So and India is very rich in carbon stocks, and so therefore we need to understand its special distribution and how much is the magnitude of the carbon stored in different ecosystems. So we should have a good quantification of this. Okay, so this is possible. Other aspect is now because new techniques are also coming with times. When earlier time the forester used to use laser range finder, clinometer, all the instrument range finder for taking forestry operations. As time is advancing, now we are using terrestrial laser scanner, for example, and which is giving not just information about the single tree in a very detailed manner, but it also can generate information for the whole stand of the tree of several meter in size stand. You can digitize it, and you can digitize it, and then you can measure many structural characteristics of the forest, and which ultimately can help you not only understanding biomass distribution but also understanding the habitat structure of birds or mammals or other things which are affected by the forest structures. The other the satellite data which is coming from for example, the laser which is coming from the data coming from the space is GEDI, Global Ecosystem Dynamic Investigation, and you can just search in the website and you will get that the data is also there, freely available data, and it was launched in something around 2018 and 18 to 2023 it remained, and after that with some gap, now it has, and again they have installed this GEDI on board International Space Station, and it will continue up to 2030. So now you think of a situation where actually you have a lot of LiDAR data from space is becoming available, and LiDAR data is very much useful as far as the carbon stock estimation is concerned, because height of the tree is directly related to the biomass of the tree. So if you get this information about the height variable, you can have a very high degree of confidence that you can estimate the biomass also with a very high accuracy. So that's why these techniques, this data which is going to be there will be very useful. And this is a example that how in Western Himalaya the canopy height information from 0 to 47-meter trees are there. In the greater Himalaya, where trees are even taller, which are even higher altitude, trees are even taller than the lower altitude. So this kind of very beautiful insight, which otherwise is very unimaginable for a common man, that why taller trees will be there at a higher altitude. So LiDAR reveals all kinds such kind of information and will make you much more knowledgeable. And then other technology which parallelly, which is also has evolved, is the radar technology. Radar has turned into synthetic aperture radar. Now in terms of synthetic aperture radar, we are collecting a lot of data. We have multiple satellites working in X band, C band, L band, and even you will see in 3-4 years P band data also from space will be available. And the major advantage as far as the foresters are concerned, that these frequencies longer wavelength, they are longer wavelength, and particularly wavelength of P band and L band, which are of very large wavelength, for example 70 centimeter P wavelength, 24 30 centimeter L wavelength. So these wavelengths can easily pass through the canopy, the foliage part of the forest, and it can give you very good information about the gray part of the forest, for example trunk, branches. And there are these are the places where you have the biomass. So that's why we actually right now a lot of advancement and a lot of in terms of technique development, and also in terms of launching new radar satellites is right now is a priority area. And this is, for example, one example, Doon Valley in Dehradun. We have sal forest and very high biomass, above 500 ton per hectare at certain places where very large diameter trees are there. At the same time, there are places where trees are very low density and sparse. We have biomass around 200 or 250 ton per hectare. So you can understand that such a large variation is there in the biomass distribution in this area. Even that we are using LiDAR data and combining with optical and SAR data, it has been possible to using machine learning to model the biomass of this area. So this is recent development and very latest development in using technology and generating such kind of map. And about 20 years back or 15 years back, it was not possible to do like this. We were generating growing stock maps in a very preliminary manners, giving some values to the quantity of growing stock in a particular part of the forest. But not like this, that we have a continuous map, wall-to-wall map showing the variation, changes in the biomass across the topography, down the slope from the ridge, and also in the valley bottoms. So all such changes were not earlier appreciable. And now to further to sustain the data supply, L1 data is the most demanded data as far as the forest change is concerned and plantation activity is concerned. A lot of plantation activity is being done across the country, across the globe, and a lot of cutting is also being done. Secondary forests are there. So all those areas has to be monitored very regular manner and very low time interval, so that we will do a good carbon accounting for such areas. So L1 data is in very high demand, and that's why NISA satellite, ISRO, NASA collaborated, and this satellite is going to provide you a science product. And then with this science product will be like we will be giving a global biomass map, which will show you the biomass up to 100 ton per hectare only, not beyond that. And the areas where beyond the 100 ton biomass is there, those will be there will be shown in one color, and whereas the below the where below 100% 100 ton per hectare biomass is there, that their area, that part variation will be shown. So this is a global biomass map will come. And similarly disturbance map will be also be generated, because it is a 12 days repeat satellites, and 12 days is a very high repeativity satellites. And then with the help of, we will be able to monitor the changes in the forest, like deforestation changes, clear cutting. So across the globe, these kind of things can be done. So that's why we have a lot of hope from the NISAR mission, that this will help a lot in carbon cycle studies. biomass mission from NASA is also ESA from it is coming, and they are also planning to generate above ground biomass map at 200-meter resolution. Forest height map they are also will want to generate a 200-meter resolution. Forest disturbance map at 50-meter resolution. So such type of new developments are taking place where different depending on the strength of the satellites and depending on the frequency, different types of products are being planned, and they have every product has a strategy how to achieve a desired accuracy level so that it will be useful for the stakeholders. And this is the strategy kind of strategy at global how, because globally biomass is not uniformly distributed, and the distribution is quite skewed. For example, in tropics, red areas signify very high biomass, very high carbon stocks, whereas if you go towards the polar region, towards the higher latitude, there are most of the areas with low biomass, but even then there could be areas where high biomass is there. So that's why now we need a different strategy. We need synergistic use of different technologies, optical data. We need for classifying different biomes. Then we need LiDAR data to have height. Then we need microwave data to generate height map also in some cases, and to generate directly biomass from using biomass models. So this type of synergistic approaches are being now considered, and so scientists are now not working with single data, but they are working with all sorts of data so that we can get a best estimate of biomass. Once we will have, for example, if we are able to generate a baseline benchmark map, we are able to generate for one time period, which is having more than, let us say, 85% accuracy. Then the next time when we will generate, let us say after 5 year or after time period, so then we will have a very high degree of confidence that we are really tracking the changes in the carbon at a global scale. Of course, at local scale, there are many good studies has been done on tracking carbon, but the major uncertainty is that a global scale, because global scale, the whole carbon cycle, we are trying to understand how forests are actually contributing to the whole carbon cycle in terms of gain and loss of carbon from the forest areas. And then similarly, this is the similar example of Northeast, where for a small area, how much carbon has been lost in different time period. It is shown that so this such kind of studies we do, carbon stocking studies we do using geospatial technology, and these are very much desired nowadays. Everybody is demanding that how much carbon loss and has happened with time, and in future what will happen. So these are the questions which are coming time and again, and we have to address such questions. And the other aspect is that forest is simply by saying that the once you monitor the changes, gain and loss in the forest cover, so that is enough for understanding the forest health and this thing. No, forest actually are very active entity. They every time moment they interact with the atmosphere in terms of gaseous exchange. Carbon dioxide they take, and water also they take, and in terms of evapotranspiration they release water also, and they evapotranspirate also. So they are always interacting with the atmosphere, and so they are always in some kinds of equilibrium with the environmental conditions. So these kind of things cannot be done with the simple things. We need very sophisticated instrumentation. This is called eddy covariance towers or carbon flux towers. So they are meant for such things because they collect meteorological data also, and they also side by side they monitor carbon dioxide, and if you want methane, monitoring methane. If you want other NO2 and other gases monitoring, so it is possible. And once it's because they are very precise in information they are providing, so with the help of these data you can really understand the ecosystem very well, and you can use this type of data for calibration and validation of the remote sensing based models, which for example gross primary productivity model, NPP model. So such instrumentation is also required. And this is an example of, for example, the upper figure shows that how much carbon, say, sal forest absorbs in a year. So entire year it actually absorbs, except in some cases it actually releases also during summer season, net release, and otherwise it is net gain situation. But a plantation down below is actually always in a net gain situation. So it means that the early stages of plantation actually are very good for sequestering carbon. As the forest grows older, so then what happens that at certain period, particularly during the dry period, the forest becomes source of carbon actually. But we want actually the forest or forests would remain sink of carbon. So it a lot depends on kind of management you are doing there, what kind of forestry it is there. Sometimes you're going to have to stop also if it is the nature of the forest is like that. But sometimes, but right now most of the time, because our forests are degraded, half of the Indian forest have a lot of pressures. So it is forest fire is there, grazing is there, collection of many forest produce, different type of forest produce is happening. It's all create pressure on the forest, and forest gradually become from source to say sinks to source. So this kind of pattern we need to understand well. And then this is other kind of research which is going on to understand that how water is transmitted from the root to the canopy, and how which species to individual species response, how is it response with respect to drought, with respect to heat wave, whether they changes their water flow characteristics. All such things are also important. And if you are really doing modeling in the for example, in forestry or ecology, what one of the major question is that how our forests are behaving with respect to the environmental changes which are taking place right now. For example, drought. Some year, last year winter was a full drought, and then what and summer were also very hot last year. This year, in fact, very hot summer. So whether it has certain impact on our forest, how you will know? So for that we have to rely on process-based model, and process-based model again will rely on a lot of data from the fields. And for calibration validation, they will rely on eddy covariance data, as I have told earlier. So when you have such kind of state of art eddy covariance towers, you have a high computational power, you have models at hand, and you also have a good subject knowledge about the different traits of the vegetation, how they function. So you can actually get and implement such model and get scenarios which can inform you that which way your forest will respond in coming year, and whether they will gain the carbon or whether they will lose the carbon, or what kind of impact will be there on the forest. So such kind of models. So for example, this study, as I'm showing here, has shown that the high altitude temperate forests are more sensitive to drought as compared to the low altitude forest in Western Himalaya. And we also do biodiversity assessment. Biodiversity normally conventionally, that it is required field sampling. Again, when you do it through remote sensing also, you require field sampling. But here the effort which goes in field sampling can be dramatically reduced, because you can use the remote sensing type, vegetation type, density, altitude information for stratification, and by with that you can actually reduce the sampling intensity, and even then you can get a very good error of estimates, whether you want to know species richness or whether abundance, like that. So but more than that, because we want to map the biodiversity, we want to know where a higher concentration of plant resources is there, where it is moderate, where it is low, where forest fragmentation is high, where it is moderate, where it is low, where disturbances are more high and low. So all sorts of things is required for planning actually. You cannot plan otherwise where to put the industry, and if a particular industry is coming in a very highly fragile zone, you need to assess what will be the impact of that industry on the local phytoresources or animals, or for example ecosystem services. So for that, such kind of now remote sensing geospatial inputs are prepared. For example, vegetation type map, fragmentation map, disturbance map, biological richness map. All such inputs are very valuable. And similarly, because not only native biodiversity which need to be monitored, in order to know the health of the forest ecosystem. We also know that how much is the alien biodiversity, invasive plant species, their spread is increasing over the year, and how with disturbance these species are colonizing new areas. And now we have many such tools, which is one of the tools is ecological niche modeling tools, and researcher has very widely used such tools in order to map the like susceptibility of invasion of different species. And this is also very popular applications among ecologists. And the next other aspect is that, just like you do the pathological investigation when you get any kind of problem, health problem. Similarly, in remote sensing also, hyperspectral data is primarily used for monitoring the health of the vegetation. For example, you want to know the LAI variation, leaf area index, what is the range of leaf area index in that particular forest area, what is the range of nitrogen content, what is the range of chlorophyll content. And so if you combine all these parameters and you in an integrated manner, if you study, you will come to know that these parameters will definitely suggest you that whether your ecosystem or your forest health is good or bad. So these kind of information, again, you need hyperspectral data. Now, good thing is that now, for example, Prisma data is available free of cost from Italian Space Agency. Earlier, Hyperion data we have used in this example, and this is example of Middle Andaman, where we assess the health of the mangrove ecosystem. So, spectral indices were identified, and the best spectral indices were selected, and then based on that, these maps were prepared. The other kind of studies which are going on, particularly, understanding the habitat requirement of large herbivore, for example, elephant, or carnivore, for example, tiger, because India, as the human population is increasing, we have hardly left any area human disturbance free, and that's why in many areas the animal have got confined in certain pockets. And in India, elephants are also mainly confined in 4 pockets, and particularly the central part of the elephant range highly fragmented, and because of that the elephants they move outside their forest areas and grassland areas, and they do crop damage. And so by doing this type of analysis and the understanding the trend of deforestation over time in such areas, the ecologists can get a very good idea that what has happened in such area, whether a habitat population is increased or population has also not changed. So all these scenario, if you want to plan for example, minimizing the elephant human conflict, you have to think in this direction that how actually what has happened in this landscape, why the animals have become so furious, and so why it is causing killing of the humans, or vice versa, killing of elephants is taking place. So at landscape ecological studies has to be done, and geospatial data is very valuable for such things. Another aspect is that there are many mobile species, many mobile animals like elephant also, as I said, many birds which fly very high, even certain aquatic animals like turtles particularly. So now it is possible that they can be tagged with a transmitter, and the transmitter then interact with the satellites, and then satellites can track the movement of the particular animal. And this has been very useful, successful applications. Today large number of species has been put the transmitters, and transmitters also become very small in size and very low cost transmitters. Even small mammals are now, small birds are being now targeted for satellite telemetry studies. And based on the data is very valuable, because this will give you the migration route information, and their distribution pattern, and their resource requirement, and their behavior, and their seasonality, change in behavior with respect to seasonality. So all these aspects of ecology of the species are otherwise very difficult to actually imagine, and this use of geospatial databases on habitats on ground, and then plus with satellite telemetry information, the distribution pattern of species, if it comes to you, then you can take a very good decision about the conservation of the species, and you can also pinpoint the threat areas. which are the threats. For example, many these wind power mills in southern India are actually at many places their density is very high, and they are actually on the migration path of the many bird species. So leading to the death of the birds when they struck with these such water mills. So, so these are the importance of the satellite telemetry techniques in particularly. And forest fire is another very important application. This is a very successful application, and we can monitor near real time where the fire is taking place with about 30-minute latency. This information goes to even at a beat guard level. We can burnt area. We can easily assess, and we can now at least do the forest fire susceptibility zonation, and forest department knows a priori where more fire takes place, where less fire takes place, depending on the environmental conditions. And we also know how the recovery of the ecosystem takes place. And so in this field actually forest, and also now because we have a lot of atmospheric satellites, they can even figure out how much emission of gases, for example carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, and your NO2 is being released due to forest fire activity. So in forest fire the remote sensing technology has very advanced and very useful application. And similarly now there is a mobile apps are also being developed to report forest fire from ground and to supplement to complement the satellite-based observations. And the other aspect is right now in India, because in India we are having many ecologically fragile zone, for example, say Himalaya, Western Himalaya, Eastern Ghats, Andaman Nicobar Islands, northeastern regions. And now slowly remote sensing GIS inputs are also entering into a conservation planning. And the Ministry of Environment Forest has been now taking very seriously the inputs which are being generated by the remote sensing community in their decision making. And now actually for legal processes also, remote sensing data is being used on ground for boundary digitizations, or forest survey is being done using DGPS techniques. So a lot of advancement has taken place, and in actual governance also, these inputs have become very critical. And so with that, this I think I have covered my presentation.